Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to try something because my partner just found this thing at our library called the Book Connection, and it's basically like a book recommendation service through your library. And if you watched my book haul back in November, I think it was the beginning of November, I had told you guys that I'm a librarian. I've worked in the library field for 4 years doing various different positions. I just graduated from my master's program for library science, and so I'm always trying to find ways to incorporate library things into my channel. And when he found this, I was like, I immediately need to do it, and I need to make a video about this book recommendation service. I did want to note that I am aware that Kayla from Books and Lala has done a paid book recommendation service, so I want to direct you to those videos because I did end up watching them and they're incredible. I really like what she had to say about them. She even mentions using your library for book recommendation services if you didn't want to pay for that service. I really enjoyed those videos. So this is, I mean, partially inspired off that, but really it came from the fact that we just randomly found it on our library's website. But I'll have everything linked below, Kayla's channel and the 2 videos that you should go and watch and subscribe. I love Kayla. But with that, we're going to go through and fill out their application and like look at what questions they ask. I mean, in reality, this is basically just referencing. It's a form of referencing. But what I think is really cool about it is that they are doing it kind of to accommodate the pandemic. So I want to go through the application and fill it out with you guys. And yeah, I'm really excited. So I'm on the website right now, and it's called the Book Connection at BPL, which is my library. It's a personalized service offered by the library for kids, teens, and adults. How it works: fill out the form for kids, teens, or adults. Within a week, a library staff member will pick out books for you based on your preferences. You will receive an email or a phone call when the books are on hold for you and ready to be picked up. Reserve a curbside pickup time online or call the library to schedule. Happy reading. I have a feeling, because this isn't a paid service, that it's just going to be some minimal, like, what are some books that you've enjoyed? You know, and like what genres do you enjoy? So I think it's going to be a pretty minimal service, but I'm still excited. So you fill out your name, library card number, and then your email address or phone number depending on your preference. So it's asking how many books do you want? So you can get anywhere from 1 to 6 books. I think I want to do 3 because I don't know why I do everything in like 2s or 3s. Oh, that's cool. You can do like a preference on what kind of format. So you can do books, large print books, or books on CD. I'm just going to do books. And then it's asking what genre are you interested in. Check all that apply. So you can check fantasy, history, horror, sci-fi, thriller, biography/memoir, general fiction, mystery, romance, western. But you also have the option to fill in a genre. So I'm wondering if maybe like what you could do in this situation if you wanted a combination of like middle grade and teens, if you could fill in the other section that you like middle grade and teen books. So I'm going to check fantasy, horror, sci-fi, thriller, general fiction, and mystery. Why not? I'm not going to fill in another genre because I think I just want adult books for this. It does ask if you're looking for a particular title/author, and I'm not. So the 3 books that I have enjoyed recently. I read The Vanishing Half and loved it. And I think I'm in the mood for a thriller. So the last thriller that I read that I loved was When No One Is Watching. Black Sun. You have to have Black Sun. Okay, so the 3 books that I picked were The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, and When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. Yeah, so I mean, this isn't extremely detailed. I think when you fill out other genre, you can get a little more detailed in it. I am curious, I didn't actually look. I'm curious if they only ask for 3 books because I'm asking for 3 books. No, I clicked 6 right now and it still says list 3 books you've enjoyed recently. Okay, so we submitted that. It says it takes a week, so I'm gonna check back in with you guys in a week to see what they suggested for me. But I'm excited to see what they say, and I'm very curious to see if they suggest 3 titles that are like 1 for each book that I said I enjoyed. Okay, so now we wait. Hello, it's been like 2 days and I already have an email about the books that they picked for me. So we're gonna go through them together, read the synopsis. I'm excited. I'm really excited. So the thing I was surprised about is they don't actually send you an email explaining why they chose what they chose. They just send you an email saying like, these titles are on hold for you, so you know that those are the titles they chose for you, but you don't really know why they chose them. So that is like slightly disappointing, but what do you expect? That's probably a lot of work to explain why you chose which titles that you chose. But basically, I just got a library hold pickup notice. I'm actually kind of excited, but also one of the books I'm apprehensive about. So the first book on this list is The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin, and I'm assuming that this was suggested because I enjoyed The Vanishing Half, because I do know that The Immortalist is a historical fiction. We're gonna look at the synopsis. It's kind of funny because Goodreads also has Readers Also Enjoyed, and the first book is The Vanishing Half, so interesting. This has a 3.71, and it says, if you knew the date of your death, how would you live your life? It's 1969 in New York City's Lower East Side, and word has spread of the arrival of a mystical woman, a traveling psychic who claims to be able to tell anyone the day they will die. The Gold Children, 4 adolescents on the cusp of self-awareness, sneak out to hear their fortunes. The prophecies inform their next 5 decades. Golden boy Simon escapes to the West Coast searching for love in 80s San Francisco. Dreamy Clara becomes a Las Vegas magician. Obsessed with blurring reality and fantasy, eldest son Daniel seeks security as an army doctor post 9/11, and bookish Varia throws herself into longevity research where she tests the boundaries between science and immortality. So I do see some of the parallels. Like I said, it's historical fiction. It's following siblings, and The Vanishing Half follows 2 twins, and then it's like decades of this family living their lives, and that's what happens in The Vanishing Half. What's really cool about this is on my physical TBR. I have it in the other room on my bookshelf. I've had it since it came out in like 2018, so it's time that I read it. I've just been apprehensive because I see really mixed reviews. But we're gonna read it, obviously. But I'll probably just read my own physical copy of it. So the next book I'm really excited about. It's Jade City by Fonda Lee. And obviously this is a recommendation based off of Black Sun, so I'm really excited. I actually wasn't 100% sure when they were suggesting these books if they would suggest one based off of the 3 books that I said I had recently enjoyed, but so far it seems like they have done that. So let's look up Jade City. So this is a 4.07 on Goodreads. That's a really good rating. I wonder if the Readers Also Enjoyed, if it has Black Sun. Oh my god, it does. So on Readers Also Enjoy, it has Black Sun. Ooh. So the synopsis says, the Call family is one of 2 crime syndicates that control the island of Kikon. It's the only place in the world that produces rare magical jade, which grants those with the right training and heritage superhuman abilities. The Greenbone clans of honorable jade-wearing warriors once protected the island from foreign invasion, but nowadays, in a bustling post-war metropolis full of fast cars and foreign money, Greenbone families, like the Calls, are primarily involved in commerce, construction, and the everyday upkeep of the districts under their protection. When the simmering tension between the Calls and their greatest rival erupts into open violence in the streets, the outcome of the clan war will determine the fate of the Greenbones and the future of Kikon itself. So also really cool, this is on my physical TBR. I have had it since like August or something. I've seen nothing but rave reviews about it. I'm really excited for this one. And I'll probably just read my physical copy of this as well. But this is such a great suggestion, primarily because I already own it and have wanted to read it. So it's like one of those things that's like, I wasn't really going into this for new books. I wanted books that were similar to what I had suggested that I liked. So the third book that they suggested was The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And this one's interesting because I read The Broken Girls whenever it came out, probably 2017, I think. Let's look that up. Oh, 2018. So The Broken Girls came out in 2018. I actually read it with a few friends and I remember really enjoying it. So I am kind of interested in this one. Like, I think it'll be good. I don't have it on my physical TBR. I didn't actually have it on my radar as something that I wanted to read. And so this is clearly the suggestion for when no one is watching. So they did basically take my 3 books and made a recommendation based off of each book. So The Sundown Motel actually has a 4.05 on Goodreads. Let's look at the readers also enjoyed, because now I'm curious. Alyssa Cole's book's not on here, but let's read the synopsis. The secrets lurking in a rundown roadside motel ensnare a young woman, just as they did her aunt 35 years before, in the new atmospheric suspense novel from the national bestselling and award-winning author The Broken Girls. Upstate New York, 1982, every small town like Fell, New York, has a place like the Sundown Motel. Some customers are from out of town, passing through on their way to someplace better. Some are locals trying to hide their secrets. Viv Delaney works as the night clerk to pay for her move to New York City, but something isn't right at the Sundown, and before long she's determined to uncover all of the secrets hidden. I'm primarily excited for this because I don't really read a lot of mysteries and thrillers. I've probably said that a ton of times, but I don't, and I want to. Like, I really want to like more mysteries and thrillers and get into more mysteries and thrillers. One that's currently on my list and that I was kind of hoping they would suggest is Night Swim. I'm gonna make an appointment to pick up Sundown Motel and then I will start reading them. I'm probably gonna start reading The Immortalist first, just because it's the one book that I'm the most apprehensive about. What's up? The weather has been so weird. It's been in like the 90s, upper 80s, low 90s. And here's the thing, I barely know what day it is, let alone like when you're switching up seasons on me. I'm not really sure what century I'm living in at this point. Anyway, I read The Immortalists and I didn't update you in between because I didn't really have a lot of great thoughts about it. I'm gonna tell you right now, I gave this a 2.5 stars. Okay, so this basically follows the Gold siblings. It's in 1969 New York City. They have figured out that a mystical woman has come to the city and she can basically predict when you're going to die. So they end up finding her. They all find out when they're going to die, like what age they're going to die. And I'm guessing like this whole moral of the story is that knowing when you're going to die sort of impacts the way in which you choose to live your life. So there are 4 sections to this book, and in each section you are following a different sibling, and it's in order from the siblings that will die at the youngest to the sibling that will die to the oldest. You're following their life, and it's really tragic, and they're really miserable people. And so why do I think this was suggested to me when I put in The Vanishing Half? Mainly, I think it's because it's a family saga and it's strictly following siblings. The Vanishing Half follows siblings. It is a historical fiction. This is also historical fiction. It takes place between the time of 1969 to 2016. So much like The Vanishing Half, it is a span of time that you're following these siblings. So like, to be fair, this isn't a bad suggestion. This is not a bad suggestion if you loved The Vanishing Half, but it doesn't hit the same, and it's definitely not about racial tension in terms of like the characters aren't dealing with the racial tension firsthand. They do discuss racial tension and racism within the story. There are a few BIPOC side characters, and those characters have called out other white characters in the story for their like ignorance. So like, I think it's there. I think this suggestion is a sound suggestion in terms of themes, but in terms of impact, I don't think that this is as impactful as it could have been. And I really think that the reason for that is because this book hinges on you loving the main characters, or at least empathizing with them and caring about them in some capacity, or that you are really invested in their fate. But I didn't care about any of these characters. There was a very rare moment that I felt connected to any of the characters. So for me, the pitfall for this book is that it's a character-driven book. It hinges on you liking these characters or empathizing, and I wasn't. I wasn't invested in them because they were really miserable. They're miserable people. They're definitely miserable people, and I think that's a product of knowing when they're gonna die, which I think is the point of this story. But I also think that it's because they're very judgmental and they're very like self-absorbed. And it's interesting because in each perspective, they all get called out by somebody else about their self-absorption in something. And I think it's interesting because it's usually always a BIPOC character that's doing that, that's calling out these characters. It's only one instance where it wasn't a BIPOC side character calling them out. And it makes me wonder if the point of the whole story really is the fact that like they knew what age they were going to die, and regardless of if they like fully believed in it or not, it haunted them all their lives. So they made sometimes reckless decisions, or in some cases they were too unwilling to live life to the fullest because they wanted to change their fate type of thing. The only great part of this book is Ruby, who is one of the daughters of one of the characters, and she is like a beacon of light in this story, but she doesn't come in until like the later half of the book. And I loved her character. I really, really enjoyed the moments that some of the other characters got with Ruby. I don't really have that much more to say about this book other than like, I didn't enjoy it. There is one thing though that I do want to talk about, and it might be a light spoiler, so I'll put something on the screen that says like spoilers. I'll have a timestamp and everything. Okay, so the first perspective that you're following is Simon, and Simon is a queer character, and he ends up going to San Francisco to kind of live out his life. And I was just really bothered by the fact that Simon, out of every single sibling in this book, who, mind you, everyone was in some sort of relationship at some point in the book, but Simon was the only one that was depicted in having gratuitous sex scenes. And I was really bothered by this because I feel like this is a trope that authors fall into with queer characters, where queer characters are always given these really gratuitous sex scenes, but the cisgender characters aren't. So it was just really jarring. And that's a thing. There are people that are that way. So if that was, you know, the character's trait, that's one thing. But the fact that he was the only character to have any sex scenes in general, and for them to be like really aggressive and intense, was, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And maybe I'm wrong. So if somebody else has read this, if you had different feelings, I'd like to know your thoughts on it. But that part just really bothered me. That being said, I'm gonna unhaul this, but I'm glad that I finally read it and got to it, and like I have my thoughts on it now, and I don't need to keep it on my shelf. So I'm actually like 20% into Jade City. The audiobook came in and I ended up listening to it and I got hooked. So I'm just gonna keep reading that one, and I'll keep updating you, but I'm loving it so far. I've been playing my game and listening to Jade City, and I'm about 150 pages into the book. I love it. I love it. I love it. The hype is real. I'm out of breath because I ran up the stairs. Well, I ran downstairs to grab the book, and then I ran up the stairs to do this clip, so I can't breathe because I'm out of shape. I don't always love political stories, but the politics in this are really, really interesting. I've not had this feeling in a while where I jumped into a book and immediately liked all of the characters, but I immediately liked all the characters in this book, although one just was revealed to be the biggest piece of shit ever. But I love Andon and Shay so much. They're my two favorite characters so far. I really like Hilo, but I feel like he's a loose cannon and anything could happen with him. I feel like there's a lot of potential for me to not like him. Lon's pretty cool. He doesn't have like the most striking personality or memorable personality, but he's brothers with Hilo, and I feel like that's important that they're so different because they contrast each other really well. I feel like Lon is really level-headed, and I really like his relationship with Shay so far. But you guys, I get the hype, and now I'm nervous because I already can feel myself wanting to go directly into the second book. And honestly, I can say I have a lot of the same feelings in terms of like my reading experience as I had with Black Sun, where I was having a really fun time and it was unexpected and I didn't have any expectations going into it. So maybe that's the lesson that I've learned for the 15th time, that I need to stop going into books with so much expectation. But that's hard when you live on the internet, isn't it?
Was furious at his sister. He stormed into the main call house and found her at the table in line.
having a tragically bad hair day and we're just gonna move through it because I finished Jade City and I really want to talk about it. So Jade City was the recommendation for Black Sun, and honestly, I think this was the perfect recommendation for Black Sun. And I don't mean that in like they were so comparable that if you loved Black Sun, you should read Jade City or vice versa. I just think for me personally, the things that I loved in Black Sun really fit well with the things that I loved in Jade City. There were specific themes and structure that really made Jade City work for me the way that Black Sun worked for me. But I think that if you thought Black Sun was slowly paced, you would probably like Jade City more. But the themes that I think were very prevalent in here that I loved from Black Sun, and what made this work so well for me and what made Black Sun work so well for me, is it's a character-driven story. There are political themes in here, which I think there are more political themes in Jade City than in Black Sun. But one major theme that I think is really interesting that is in Black Sun and in Jade City is the aspect of main characters being outsiders. So in Black Sun, the three main characters, Narampa, Shiala, and Serapio, are all outsiders in some way, and that drives their decisions and their plots. And this is actually something very prevalent in Jade City. You have three siblings who are outsiders in very different ways, and then you actually have a kind of adopted type sibling who is also an outsider. So you have our oldest sibling, Lon, who is now the pillar of his family, and he ended up getting this position kind of in an unprecedented way because he's the youngest pillar I think they've ever had. And by the time he became pillar, a lot of the people that his grandpa put into positions of power are still in those positions. And so Lon isn't really respected as much as he should be. And they don't really respect a lot of the decisions that he's made. They don't necessarily trust him to make the correct decisions. And so in that respect, he's an outsider. Then you have the younger brother, Hilo, who is the horn, and he also is the youngest horn to be put in this position of power, and he was put into the position of power because of Lon. And he's also kind of just reckless, and he lets his anger drive him, and he kind of just makes decisions. He's not somebody who's calculated. He kind of just lets his emotions push him forward. So he's respected in the fact that he is a fighter. He will fight for things, but he's not necessarily respected in other ways, and a lot of people do see him as reckless. So in that regard, he's pretty much an outsider as well. And then you have Shay, and Shay actually left her family in order to pursue a degree and try to build her own life outside of her family's legacy. So obviously that in and of itself makes her an outsider, but she ends up coming back in this story, and she still doesn't really want to be a part of the family in terms of like their business and the legacy that she's supposed to uphold. She really wants to make it on her own. And then you have Andon, who is one of my favorite characters. Shay and Andon are my two favorite characters. Andon is the adopted type brother, and just that in and of itself, he already feels like an outsider. And when you start to follow more of Andon's story, you start to realize why he feels like an outsider, but I'm not going to go into detail about that because it would give away too much. So because of those themes, I felt like this was the perfect recommendation for my love of Black Sun, because I immediately loved this book. I immediately was sucked in and loved reading and getting to know these characters. There were so many plot twists that I didn't see coming, and ooh. Also, I just really loved the world and the magic system. This is very much an urban fantasy in the sense that they have some modern technology, they have cars, cell phones, things like that. But what's funny about it for me was that oftentimes you could easily forget that they had modern technology, and you could easily forget that it was an urban fantasy because it would be at random moments. Somebody would call somebody on a cell phone, or somebody would get into a car and drive away, and you're like, oh yeah, this is an urban fantasy. But also this leans heavier on the fantasy side than I think most urban fantasies do, or at least the urban fantasies that I've read. So good. I had been messaging my friend Rachel, I'll link her channel down below. I had been messaging her since I started it because she's already read it, and it was so fun. And we decided to buddy read Jade War next month together, and I'm really, really excited. And now I'm so excited for the third book to come out, but I'm scared because Fonda Lee doesn't give a shit about your feelings. This little thing is obnoxious. But I started The Sundown Motel, and I am 68 pages into it, and I'm enjoying it. It does follow a very similar structure as Broken Girls, so I kind of called that in the beginning. I think I said that it was probably going to be past and present, but I don't hate that structure. I'm actually enjoying the idea or the concept of this one more than Broken Girls. Broken Girls was really complex, and the more that I think about it now that I'm reading this, the more that I realize that I kind of just give thrillers 4 stars, because if it kept my attention and I just enjoyed it and I felt like it was mysterious, maybe I didn't call all the plot twists, I tend to just kind of give them 4 stars since I don't read a lot of thrillers. So to me, it's like, okay, yeah, I enjoyed this, 4 stars. But in reality, now that I'm looking back on it and reading this one, I do think that that was probably like a 3-star read. But this one's pretty fun. There's like an element in it that I didn't expect. I'm not quite sure how this at all relates to When No One Is Watching. I'm already having a hard time justifying this recommendation. I think it's solely based on the fact that it was just a thriller mystery, but this has like a science fiction edge to it. So now I understand why people put it in the science fiction section. But again, I'm only 68 pages, but I just don't see how the themes are gonna be there. So I finished The Sundown Motel, and I would say that this is like a 3.5. I was going back and forth between a 3.5 and a 4 stars because I absolutely liked this more than The Broken Girls, which is Simone St. James' other book that I've read. But there was some parts in the ending that I felt were just added for the sake of like adding a little more suspense to one of the perspectives, and I didn't see the point of it. But otherwise, I think this is a really solid thriller slash paranormal thriller, especially if you like paranormal thrillers. This is really fun. Do I think this is a good recommendation if you loved When No One Is Watching? It's hard to say, because I think the bigger issue here is that When No One Is Watching is really unique in what it was doing. I mean, it was talking about racism, race, gentrification, so I don't think you're gonna get anything like that, even if you ask for like a recommendation that's exactly like that one. So I think if you're looking for that specifically, then no, don't waste your time reading this. I think if you like thrillers that have like a larger message or theme to it, and you like thrillers that have dual perspectives, if you like thrillers that kind of explore things from the past and bring it into the present, then this is probably going to be for you, which to me were some of the prevalent themes in When No One Is Watching. So I think that if you liked those themes, then yeah, this would be a solid recommendation, and that's why I think that it's a solid recommendation. I mean, it's kind of exploring how women aren't safe in the world and how women have this added layer of needing to learn how to protect themselves at all times whenever they go out into the world, and even the fact that like sometimes they're not even safe in their own homes. I also really like that this was told in past and present, And I was more invested in Vivian's perspective, which is the aunt, and she's in 1982, and she's more searching for a thread that ties together these missing girls. And then you have Carly, who's her niece, who's in 2017, and she's more so looking into the disappearance of Vivian, her aunt. And she's kind of threading together things about these missing women as well, but it's more so in Vivian's perspective, and to me that was more interesting than Carly's. I liked both women, but I did also connect more with Vivian. And I actually really liked the paranormal element. Sometimes paranormal elements in thrillers or mysteries that I've read can be cheesy, but I felt like this one actually worked really well. So yeah, overall, this is a really solid read. And I think that if you liked The Broken Girls, you'll probably like this a lot. So I finished all of the books, and I will recap what I read and what they were recommended for. So like I said, The Sundown Motel was the recommendation for When No One Is Watching, and this was a 3.5 for me, and When No One's Watching was a 4 stars for me. And I think that like this is a solid recommendation if you're solely looking for a thriller with some of the same themes. I also read Jade City, which was a recommendation based off of Black Sun, and Black Sun I gave 5 stars, Jade City I gave 5 stars. Jade City is a new favorite for me, 100%, hands down. Fight me. And it gave me a lot of the same feelings as Black Sun. So honestly, this was a solid recommendation for me. But like I said in the beginning, I don't think that Black Sun is for everyone, and I've seen that. I think a lot of people think Black Sun is really slow. I don't think Jade City is as slow. I just think that for me, the things that I loved in Black Sun really like translated into this book. I hope that makes sense. And then I read The Immortalist, which was recommended based off The Vanishing Half, and I gave this a 2.5 stars. I gave The Vanishing Half a 4.5 stars. So this isn't like the most solid recommendation, but I do think that this was recommended based off of like the structure of the story and the narrative rather than a lot of the themes that are explored, you know? So I don't know, this was a big yikes for me, but it had been on my TBR for years, so I finally have read it and I can unhaul it. I don't have this big overarching thing to say about whether or not you should do a book recommendation service, especially through your library. I think that if you want to have fun and explore more books, a great way to do that is through your library, through a book recommendation service, or through referencing. Like you can go to a reference librarian, whether that's email, IM, video chatting, or if you can go in. But also you can use like websites through your library called Novelist, which do a lot of the same things that YouTubers do, where they say like, if you like this book, you might like this book. I just think this is really fun, and I think that this can be really fun for a lot of people who only get their books through the library, and it's low stakes. You're not buying these books. You don't really even have to check them out if you don't want to. And then obviously, like I said, I found a new favorite book. That's like the best case scenario. And then like this book, it's been on my TBR, it's been on my radar for a really long time, and I've always wanted to read it. It's just been sitting on this shelf in front of me for a while. And so now I had the opportunity to read it, and I hated it, but like I read it. All I can say is I had a lot of fun. It is something that I would absolutely do again, and I hope that the next time that I do it, I get to explore some books that weren't even on my radar. This is the end of the video, and I never know how to end videos. I tweeted about it, and my friend Aaliyah said that I should sign off by saying, thanks for watching Disney Channel. So thanks for watching Disney Channel. I'm Steph.